Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to a view replay featuring one of the new Italian medium tanks. This is the Tier 6 P.43 bis, as being driven here by, well, it's either Monster or Monstar. I'm just going to go with Monster, because I feel a bit less ridiculous saying it. So, the standout feature of this is that it has a 90mm gun on a Tier 6 medium tank. It is the only Tier 6 medium tank to have a 90mm gun, and even when you bring Tier 7 into the picture, that's still a comparative rarity. It's not that far off, however, the short 88, which the VK3001P and the T40 can mount. The damage is better, it's 240 versus 220, but it also has slightly less pen at 140. And it's got some pretty slow shells. I think it's 700 meters a second. So this is not a sniping gun. It's definitely not a sniping gun. But in other regards, it feels a little unbalanced. And the main thing about it that feels unbalanced is that it doesn't seem to suffer any DPM penalty for having that 90mm gun. It's actually got slightly better base DPM than the VK at 1920. And when you compare that to the DPM that the T20 has at Tier 7, which is, I think, around 1500, I mean, it's not the best at Tier 6 on a medium tank. It's definitely not the best. There are machines with better DPM and a better penetration than this. But you're not really paying a penalty for having that 240 average damage, so that's a pretty powerful combo. It certainly helps when you have Tier 8 medium tanks that just let you shoot them in the butt over and over again as well. This is quite a decent position he's in right now. I mean, this machine has got decent gun depression, but given that he is here alone, if there were more enemy tanks here, he would be extremely easy to take care of, just because he doesn't really have any backup. And although the enemy team hasn't especially heavily committed to this side, that's true of his own team as well, despite this being an encounter game. So the Mod 1 finally got fed up of just being farmed for damage over and over again, except they waited rather too long to do anything about it, and they've now just gifted Monster a Kamikaze medal. So well done, that player. Yeah, this is a Tier 8 game, but, well, that one particular Tier 8, which could have been the biggest threat, turned out not to be so much. The other Tier 8s are a Scorpion and an FV, and neither of those are going to be any problem for this gun, should Monster get a chance to shoot at them. So he's already racked up over 1500 damage, which is not bad for a Tier 6 medium tank. And it just goes to show you, you know, what a powerful combination this is, having good DPM and very high damage for your tier. There are other Tier 6 tanks with 90mm guns, of course, and they tend to have slightly better pen, but I mean, that one there, for instance, the Hellcat, has rather worse DPM. So there's kind of a trade there, and in fact, I think this is even better than the short French 90mm. I think it gets a bit more penetration, and the handling's maybe marginally better. Hell, the handling on this isn't even bad. It's a perfectly average 2.4 seconds aim time, and the soft stats, the bloom, when I looked at it compared to the T40 especially, it's pretty decent. One of the bigger downsides of this machine, though, is it doesn't have great mobility. It's got a pretty lackluster horsepower per ton ratio, so you're not going to be whizzing all over the map like a Hellcat. And the armour doesn't seem that great either. It's got 18mm listed frontally for both the turret and the hull, but, well, I've not been able to look at the exact armor scheme because it's not displayed on tanks.gg, but I'm just looking at the sloping on both of those and thinking, yeah, that's probably not going to be hugely effective. You might get some troll bounces from time to time, but you're not going to be tanking in this thing. It's not a Sherman Jumbo. The turret, incidentally, is it just me, or does that kind of remind you of the Crusader turret? It's got that kind of angled look about it, right? Or is that just me that thinks they kind of look the same? Anyway, so in large part thanks to the damage that Monster has done, they've gotten some movement here. And you might be looking at this and thinking, well, he's not the only person here. No, he isn't. But if you consider he's now approaching nearly 2,500 damage done, it does seem like he's been doing the lion's share, doesn't it? And he's even going to get a chance to get the kill because the Tiger P completely fluffed the shot on that Panther M10. So they've cleared out this corner. They have a T28 in the cap. There was an OI there earlier on who wasn't particularly useful, but did at least lure down some enemy tanks to that position. And it was the OI that the T54 Mod 1 was actually engaged with. So it did give Monster an opportunity to shoot them a whole bunch. And that turned out to be a far easier encounter than it could have been. If the 54 Mod 1 had just rushed him from the start, they might have taken some damage, but there's a very good chance that they could have just bullied down Monster and killed him in the process, in which case you wouldn't really be seeing this game on YouTube. So there's not a lot of enemy tanks left at this point. Very low health KV-2's just died. And apart from artillery, there is just a Scorpion G, which represents absolutely no difficulty for this gun whatsoever. 140 average pen on a tier 6 medium isn't great, but it's only marginally less than the VK. And when you compare it to something like the T-34-85 with its 85mm gun, which I think that's 144 as well, but rather less damage, less DPM. So it feels like you don't especially have a penalty for this 90mm gun. And at this point we have to start thinking about, does this represent power creep? Maybe. I've not definitively decided that it does or doesn't, but if it does, it's sort of marginal. It's not a big jump, but just in terms of firepower, yeah, this is a very strong tier 6 medium tank. It really is. So that's one arty down. There's another left and a chance at a Pascucci's medal, but here's where that poor mobility comes in, as he's having to climb up slopes. So yeah, no chance to get there in time before his teammates finish them off. But still, 6 kills when you're bottom tier. That's not bad. So that was his ace tanker, a Leverschlei hose medal for killing higher tier tanks, a top gun, and a high caliber, and of course that kamikaze medal that got gifted to him by the 54 Mod 1 player as well. 4,200 damage done, 1,800 base XP, and he by far outperformed the rest of his team, but at least, I mean, it wasn't a great enemy team. They possibly still would have won if he'd been in any other tier 6 medium at that point, but just the fact that it has that 240 average damage and the over 1900 base XP, it's a really powerful combination, even if the shell speed is low and even if the penetration is somewhat low for its tier. It's still, like, to be able to output that damage that's powerful. That's really powerful. Anyway, so hopefully you have enjoyed this particular replay, and if you have, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.